Couple criticisms, and Jay Weber, I don't know if you were on his show recently. He had a criticism of you, and you can tell me, well, a couple, but one of them was about the gun issue and you being part of Mayor Bloomberg's group.
Absolutely, was a member.
And can you explain your position and what exactly happened on that?
I'd love to explain that, but let me first explain, now you're all wondering about this
Yeah.
anti-gun nut. Okay, hang on. First of all, I gotta explain Jay Weber. When we're on a radio show or we're invited to something, the producer calls us, we set a time, we have documents showing back and forth that we're gonna be there, and then there's a follow-up call, and in fact there's even another call that day to make sure you're gonna be on the show. Jay Weber never invited Dave Ross on his program, ever. Not one email, not one transaction, no phone call, no nothing. And then a week ago Monday when I was supposed to be on his program, of course I wasn't there, I didn't know I was supposed to be there. For 3 days he bashed me as a no-show and said I was afraid to answer questions. And Jay Weber knows, only he knows, that there was no communication with our campaign. And so I've been answering this all over the state. There's nothing I can do. Okay, was I a mayor of Mayors Against Illegal Guns? Absolutely. Should I tell you why we signed up? We were mayors all over the state. Conservative mayors throughout the state. We banded together to say on this one issue that we stood together on. We believed it was wrong for illegal aliens convicted of a felony in a foreign country to possess a firearm in the United States. Illegal alien convicted of a felony in a foreign country for possessing a firearm in the United States. That's how they formed Mayors Against Illegal Guns. And they got a bunch of us mayors to say, we stood together and said, we believe that one issue, that is wrong. And that's why you saw this huge list of mayors, all over the country, including a huge list in Wisconsin. Mayors Against, and I signed that 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was. The NRA sent out a little card and said, Mayor Ross is anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment. He is the bigot. He is hostile to gun ownership and lied over and over again. And in fact, he even went as far to say, we asked Mayor Ross to resign Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and he refused in big bold letters on it. They never asked me. There was no communication with the NRA. They said nothing to me. And first of all, I was never involved with the Mayors Against Illegal Guns after we signed that proclamation that we said it was wrong for illegal aliens to possess a firearm. So then, I'm going to tell the rest of the story, and then I organized mayors for quitting and resigning from Mayors Against Illegal Guns. And I organized such an effective effort in the state of Wisconsin that so many mayors quit. They quit putting on their website who was a member of that organization. Because they went left and we went right. Because every issue after that, they were dead wrong on. Absolutely dead wrong. And it was a direct assault on gun ownership in Wisconsin and in the United States. And so, yes, I was, and no, I'm not, and I led the effort for others to quit.
All right, talking about, the mayors against gun, after that was kind of a twisted effect on Bloomberg's part, because the NRA magazine, there was a whole bunch of mayors like you. I don't know if you're the culprit that started this, but they rescinded and pulled away from that, didn't they?
Well, what happened was, first of all, I called the NRA, the person in charge of legislative affairs. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, I'm crying foul. Here I've been a lifetime supporter of the Second Amendment. I believe in conceal and carry. I believe in open and carry. And I've had no issues with gun issues whatsoever in my background, in my record, in everything that I've said publicly. And I said, sending out a card and lying about me goes too far. Yeah. That you said you sent a letter to me, asked me to resign, and I refused in bold letters. I don't know if you know this in government. Every phone call I make, every letter I write, every document I sign, she knows this, she knows this, is on record. That's right. And we did a record search of any communication from the NRA to the mayor's office. None. They can't produce that they communicated with me. And they lied. And what I don't like is being lied about. Yeah. And so I went back to the NRA and I says, listen here, I says, why are you out to harm your supporters? Why do you want to harm your supporters? You could have called me and simply asked what was the base. Now you remember, MEGS is Mayors Against Illegal Guns, right? Now it's Mayors Against Guns. You might as well just take the illegal out there because they're
Well,
after.
isn't that when a lot of the mayors found out what this was really about? They were sort of deceived into this idea, and when they really got to the crux of it, to what was really, whoa, we don't want any part of this.
Yes. And why wouldn't you as a mayor, so, by the way, I'm getting paranoid signing any document, anything, I really am. But why wouldn't a mayor be against, in his community, where we've seen gun violence, be against an illegal alien possessing a firearm who's been convicted of a felony in a foreign country?
That's a
Who
different
could
thing than
not
what
be against that?
But that's a different thing than what they finally changed it
Yes.
to.
Yeah, oh, then they wanted to mark every bullet, and then they wanted to hold gun owners liable for anything that happened to that gun if you had purchased it. Then they wanted all sorts of registration requirements, and then it was just endless. It just, none of them made sense, and it was wrong. Because our Constitution, and I've read it, doesn't have all those exceptions. You can bear a firearm just like you can own a pencil. No difference.
Well, bare arms, that could be a sword, a knife, or anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, and by the way, Wisconsin even has a better constitutional stand on the ownership of guns, and it's gonna stay there.
Now, some people think that there are certain types of pencils we shouldn't be able to own. Where do you stand on that?
I've sat down with our chiefs, I have sat down with my police chief, who is a lifetime NRA member. There's, even though I've taken the position, he knows this, that you should be able to own any kind of weapon. I'll tell you what, the guns our cops are going up against now, the equipment we're buying them to try to defend against 50 caliber, that's the most dangerous thing a policeman can face, is a 50 caliber bullet. And so I listen to the cops and they tell me they're scared to death to go into homes right now, where they know where someone possesses a weapon, and if they think the caliber is up around 50, it's quite scary. But I have not joined the mayors who have taken a position against even 50 caliber weapons, so I have resisted that.
Do you have a problem with pencils that go faster than other
No,
pencils?
I don't. No, I don't. You're talking about the
speed at which you can write.
The difference between, when we were kids in church, they used to have that little thing you flipped with the film, you remember that?
Right.
Yeah, and then you had motion pictures, so it was moving at a different speed. Yes.
Thank you, okay.
What do you believe the proper role is, because we see that the federal government is so out of control. What do you believe the proper role is for the federal government, and then what about the state government?
Well, let me first bring it locally, because this is where the violations and what constitutionally we were required to do. Even mayors in cities want to solve every single problem in their city. And I have said consistently to our community, guess what? Your local government is about plowing your streets, filling your potholes, picking up your garbage. In our case, it's picking up your garbage, processing dog licenses and whatever else we're supposed to do. And even that, by the way, isn't constitutionally mandated. Most people own dogs without a license. I don't know if you know, cities license about 1% of the dogs. We got to get out of that dog business. But anyways, we should be doing the minimal requirement as a municipality. Now we see states getting in the business of trying to meet every single need. And of course, the federal government is trying to meet the need of absolutely everything. We need to skinny everything back down to just absolute basic service and let people live their lives, keep as much as they earn, and meet their own needs and meet their own problems. I will tell you this, when you look at your paycheck, and Glenn is right, Glenn is right. A lot of our responsibility should be towards our family and towards our children when they have problems. But you know, they take so much out of our paycheck, sometimes we can't even meet the needs of our own children. Because I'm meeting the needs of people with moral values that don't reflect mine. I'm meeting needs of people who expect things out of government that I don't think they should expect. And so, no, I think the problem starts from the local level and it goes all the way up to, I'll give you an example. I sat with a Bush representative in 2004, 2005. He came in and he told me that I was responsible for homelessness in our community. I sat in a restaurant and I can remember sitting there, and he knew I was a conservative mayor, by the way. Now, here's a conservative appointee in the Bush administration, and he's telling me I'm responsible for homelessness in my community. And I told him at breakfast that I was not. And I said, could you tell me where I am? I said, they're responsible for homelessness. He says, who? I said, the homeless. I said, because the people that are on the street, my wife and I volunteered, what, Lynn, over 10 years at the local rescue mission in our community. And we helped homeless, and we had worked with clothes, and we did all these things as an expression of help out of generosity. And I worked with those people. How many of these were people that their parents had to give up on them? And you think the government can take these people over and become mom and dad and take care of their need? And I said to this Bush guy, I says, no, I'm not asking my taxpayers to pick up the tab for this. It's not their responsibility. Now, do we work with the Salvation Army? Yes. Do we work with the men's shelter? Absolutely. Do we work with other organizations to try to meet this human need? Absolutely. But is it my responsibility as a taxpayer? No.
What did he say?
He was shocked. He was actually shocked. You know. But anyways, it goes down to a rat hole of bureaucracy anyways. You don't really solve the problem. You just create another layer of bureaucracy and hire a director and 15 co-directors and then take care of 3 people. So.
I guess I want to get back to Jay Weber because there
Yes.
was one other shot he took at you, and I want to give you your chance to respond. He also talked about Doyle's budget and kind of behind the scenes, and he didn't disclose who the people were, but said you were, like you want the budget to get passed, and you were kind of leaning on people, giving the impression you supported the budget or were trying to get them to pass the Republicans to go along with Doyle's budget.
It goes back to this argument, and you probably know. Do you remember when the Republicans put together an alternative budget to punish 4 cities and change the formula for revenue sharing? And they were going to take $1 million out of our city. Literally, we would have had to lay off 1/3 of our police officers, our fire department, and all of this. Doyle's budget at the time said that no, we're going to reject the Republican formula. It was punitive and it was wrong. They should have changed the whole formula. But here's what they did. They went and took the most democratic cities in the state. The most Democrat cities in the state, the Republicans did. And I can prove this, by the way, because we did a layover map of it to prove that it was a political move and not a move that made sense for cities. They took Milwaukee, Beloit, Racine, and Superior were the 4 most democratic cities in the entire state. And then they took those cities and took them out of the formula and said, go swim on your own, just to punish the legislators in those districts. Purely a political move. Doyle came in and said, that's wrong, and I stood with Doyle and said, that's wrong. Can you imagine the mayor of the city of Superior saying, no, stick it to us? And stand there and tell my community that they want to take $1 million in shared revenue away from our community and let that happen? I'll tell you what, I wouldn't do it. Neither. And the problem is, who do I have to stand with to protest this? I was at Tom Barrett, Gary Becker from Racine, Beloit, and Superior. And so to sit and say through the back door, absolutely. I defended our city on a wrongful formulation which was designed to politically punish 4 particular cities. And by the way, I have the data to prove that. And fortunately, we beat that back. So what happens in policy is sometimes you stand with the enemy. In that case, I did. And by the way, I'm unapologetic for that move.